And now we move on with the program. We start the plenary session on the EOSC Federation, and I want to invite on stage the chair of the next session, Ingrid Dillo, Senior Advisor at DANS.
And I think the session that we're starting now is a festive one, because this session really marks the official launch of the first node of the EOSC Federation, which is, as you by now all know, the EOSC EU node. So this session will bring you up to speed of where we stand at the moment in terms of implementation, and it will also give you a sneak peek into what we can expect from now on. But before I hand over the microphone to the first speaker, I would like to take a minute to read to you a quote that comes from the EOSC Symposium in 2021, so 3 years ago. And there was a session there that was called "Making the EOSC Work, Where Do We Go From Here?" And the quote reads, "The language we use is often overlooked and we underestimate its effect on inclusiveness. Specialist terminology, acronyms, and jargon are common, and we may easily fall into a pattern of working in a small crowd of relatively well-informed people who speak to each other in which is almost a coded language that prevents others from engaging. We run a real risk of losing parts of Europe that are still less connected, and the long tail of science not represented by European research infrastructures and clusters. Indeed, even the basic definition of EOSC is still unclear for many, so harmonizing on a central vision and using clear language that everyone can understand is key." This was 2021, and the lead author of this paper was Sarah Jones. Sarah, who I miss very much at this symposium because she was always a very present person. And unfortunately, she is no longer among us, but I think that she really hit the nail on the head there. We now see that the Federation of Node concept is there, and a harmonized central vision is indeed emerging, and we are now entering even an operational phase. But I believe that this plea for inclusivity is still very valid today. And yesterday, also the Director General Signorazzo from the Commission mentioned the key importance of both the human element and also collaboration in creating the EOSC. And I personally believe that inclusivity is a crucial part in that. So that was what I wanted to say. Having said that, let us start with the session. Again, we have a very packed 90 minutes ahead of us, so my main task is to lead you all through that so that you can reach your coffee in time. It also means that we don't have time for questions after the different talks. You can use the breaks for that, and there is the infamous Slido, of course. So during the session, please enter your questions in Slido, people in the room, but also people who are listening online, and I think there are several hundreds of them. And there is also the opportunity, of course, to prioritize your questions and other people's questions so that we can pick the ones that intrigue most people. So we start now with 3 short presentations from the Commission in which the speakers will give us their view on the EOSC node and the Federation. And our first speaker is Michael Arendthoff, whom I would like to invite to the stage. Michael is head of the Open Science and Research Infrastructures Unit of the Directorate of Research and Innovation of the Commission.
Many thanks, Ingrid. Good morning, colleagues. And thank you for starting with a quote from Sarah. I think it was very appropriate. And indeed, we have come a long way since then. We are becoming much more concrete, operational, as you said. So really, the launch of the EOSC EU node marks the beginning of a new phase of EOSC, an operational phase, as you rightly said. A phase where we have to show the real added value for the end user, to get back to the first question of yesterday's opening session. So, as said, the EOSC EU node is the first node, the reference node towards a federation of interconnected nodes, a web of distributed systems, if you like, that at the end of the day needs to serve the end user, it needs to serve the researcher, the research organizations in Europe for their needs for digital resources, be they high quality, fair data, as we just heard from Claudia, interoperable services, and other resources, and all of that in a very trustworthy and secure environment. So where do we aim to be in a not too distant future? Let's set some goals for the, let's say, the end of next year, starting with where do we want to be from the user point of view. I think we want to have demonstrated a number of end-to-end use cases that will be involving several nodes. We want to showcase what is the added value of joining the EOSC Federation, but we also want to demonstrate that the glue is holding everyone together in the Federation, so the use of federating capabilities across the nodes. From the Federation point of view, so from the system of systems point of view, we want, of course, to have tested properly, thoroughly, the enrollment of several nodes. We also want to have tested the onboarding of a range of services. And we want to have edited also the first version of what we have called federation-wide policies and rules. So the access policies, what is the acceptable use once you're in the federation and using it, what are the rules of participation of the service providers, and of course making sure that once you're in the federation, you comply by design to security rules, privacy rules, data protection rules. And we want, very importantly, to have tested, again thoroughly, the at least first edition of the interoperability framework that holds together the federation. So here I'm talking about the standards, the protocols, the guidelines that everyone has to follow. And of course, we want to have learned from this by the end of next year. Learned, when I say we, I mean, of course, those building the federation, but very much also those providing data and services into the federation, and most importantly of all, the end users and the research community. We want to have learned in terms of how we can improve the offers and the functioning of the federation that corresponds to the end-to-end use cases. We want to strengthen the glue, we want to strengthen the federating capabilities, and we want also to improve the process of how to become an EOSC node or an EOSC service provider. So have we asked the right questions that we are now asking in terms of organizational capabilities, legal requirements, technical requirements as well. So we want to take these next steps together to get to these goals by the end of next year, see what works, see what doesn't work, and of course continue to learn and improve from this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. So now we move over to our second short introduction. And our next speaker could unfortunately not be here, so we do hope that we have contact with him online. The next speaker is Gustav Kalbe. And I see him now on the screen. Hi, Gustav. So Gustav is Acting Director, Digital Excellence and Science Infrastructure of DG Connect of the European Commission. So Gustav, the floor is yours.
Hello, good morning. Can you just acknowledge that you can hear me in the room?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, very good. Thanks, first of all, for giving me the opportunity to give a short statement on behalf of the Commission, although I can personally not be present at this historic moment. And I hope you will make most of this day, because it's really a new era that is starting. Let's underline two key aspects of the EOSC node, the EOSC platform that now gets live, gets accessible to the users at large, and follow up on the presentation of my colleague that was just given before. Let's look at EOSC from two angles. One is as a major contribution to creating the European research area, a policy that the Commission has been pushing for the last years, already some time back, really to make most out of the science that we're developing, to have much faster discoveries and push the frontier science by making the research data available. And we have been running in the last years a number of initiatives to prepare for the moment we have today to make this open access to scientific data possible. And this, of course, includes the procurement and now operation of the EOSC node, which is a key element that will facilitate you the access to the data, run a number of the digital tools, and ultimately take most out of the science that you've been developing, as has been so well presented by my colleague just before. Now, we should not consider EOSC and the EOSC node as a standalone. This is really part of a much wider strategy, a much wider policy in promoting and encouraging and nurturing frontier science and science in general within the European Union. And one aspect there is modern science, frontier science, without digital infrastructures is not competitive. You will not make the breakthroughs, the advances that you could have done 100 years ago just with a paper and a pen. And here EOSC is one key element, because this is providing what we call the oil or the gold of modern science or economy, which is access to data. So therefore, I really encourage you to make real use of the EOSC node and the nodes that will come, as Michael Arendthoff presented before. It's just a first step to build a much wider federation to make most of the data, if not all data, accessible for you in an easy way to exploit it for your research. But this is just one part of a much, much larger digital infrastructure that progressively the Union has been setting up and putting in place. And we're now seeing that progressively the different elements are coming together. EOSC node is about data, but we have set up also in the last years an impressive infrastructure on high-performance computing run by the UHPC joint undertaking, which is bringing Europe back in the world leaders in high-performance computing, a necessary tool that you need in order to run the basic science, frontier science, but also innovation. And EOSC will play a primary role there, because by connecting and federating the computing resources in UHPC with the EOSC node and other data spaces will allow you not only accessing a wealth of data, but also accessing the most advanced analytic tools that the world can provide and that need those high computing powers. The next big step, however, there on the digital infrastructures is making the link with artificial intelligence. Of course, the computers we have now, the analytical tools that we have or that we've been using the last couple of years, a number of them already run on artificial intelligence. But now with the current situation, with the possibilities of these very large language models, these very large AI applications, we are now building AI factories, which will come into life in the next 3 to 4 months. The calls are out to build them up, which will really create a full ecosystem of AI services, access to data, access to analytical tools, access to AI models, access to supercomputers dedicated for AI, so that ultimately in a year from now, maybe 2 years at the latest, as a user, as a scientist, you will have a single entry point where you can bring in your own data, access the data that has been made available on data spaces, in particular on the EOSC nodes, combine this with the computing power that is made available in the UHPC network, but also get the local support from all sorts of competences and know-how that will help you transpose your models, run your simulations, write your codes, help you digest the data, and so on. And here I would really like to close with one of our pioneering projects that we had in this sense, which ended last year, the Human Brain Project, which was a 10-year effort that really pioneered this integration of digital instruments, digital tools for frontier science by combining high-performance computing with artificial intelligence and the large data sets and developing the necessary tools and procedures and processes, how you can take most out of it. With this, I would like to close my opening statement by thanking you for having come today and really encouraging now to engage with EOSC and use all the digital infrastructures that we're now making available to you in a one-stop shop as part of the wider digital ecosystem. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for taking the time to join us online, Gustav. Thank you very much. And I think these two first introductions gave us some great perspectives on the EOSC node. And now it is time to dig in a little deeper. So I would like to invite to the stage Peter Szigedi, who is Policy Officer in the High Performance Computing and Applications Unit of DG Connect of the Commission. And he will speak a little longer about the EOSC node. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Indeed, it's always good to be visionary about these things, but I'd like to recognize the moment now to celebrate the EOSC node, which is the first step, or one of the first steps in this very long journey. So we're slowly getting there. The URL is up there. The EOSC node is going to be available for public access this afternoon. Keep refreshing the URL that you see there after afternoon, right? So it will pop up there. You will see there is a welcome message there. So it will, when it goes online, it will be visible to you. Of course, we had a very successful technical launch event a little less than 2 weeks ago in Brussels, where we also launched a promotional video. If you follow that QR tag, you can watch the video you haven't seen before. It basically shows you the EOSC EU node as the first element of an EOSC federation as such. If you followed the technical launch event online, or the recordings are available, as I said, you see that we have a few unique features of the EOSC node that brings in a new user experience, we believe, for researchers. This is the first time when we actually integrated authentication, authorization, and accounting mechanisms, a true AAA solution for the EOSC node, combining EduGain, so all your home IDPs from home institutions participating in EduGain, also with EU login. So if you don't have such an opportunity, you can always come via EU login, register and log in there. We provide automated policy-based access control, so based on your home user attributes and credentials, you can get assigned into various policy groups inside the EOSC node, and then you will also get assigned virtual credits. Those credits has no monetary value, but we use those credits to manage the access to the various services inside the EOSC node. You also have personal wallets and group wallets, where you can invite other team members and share credits via the wallet. So this gives you a solution which comes with a very specific user experience. Of course, we also work with OpenAir and a bunch of other repositories where we harvest curated metadata sets for you on publications, data, services, software as well, including software heritage, which gives a broadest ever reach for those research objects. We also use recommendations. You can favorite some of the items. You can bring those items into the user interface. And the user interface itself, of course, is the first integrated platform experience for users, where we have all the services that we procured onboarded for researchers. Plus, we are, of course, as we are stepping into the build-up phase of the federation, we'll onboard more services who are willing to use the EOSC node as a unique channel to market for those services, data, products, what have you, that you want to bring into the user community, as well as we will be enrolling potential nodes or node candidates. Other than this, of course, we have monitoring, help desk, and all the support functions. So as I said, the platform is primarily targeting the end users as researchers, and they will have this unique experience to find data and metadata and all information about publications. In the plenary speech, you saw that arrow from the instrument jumping to the paper. So there is a little bit more in between, right, what we are trying to entail here, right? So we have productivity tools. You can share documents. You can collaboratively edit documents. You can pull them into notebooks like Jupyter Notebooks. You can run code in there. So you can generate actually the result of your data, and we capture the metadata throughout all those workflows for end users. You will be very much welcome to try this out this afternoon, as you will get automatically assigned to this. And that's for end users, but of course the node acts as a first node of the whole federation, where we also support other node candidates. And as I said, the service providers willing, or data providers willing to onboard. For that reason, for the first time, we're trying to offer a unique identity for users across all those platforms that are joining the federation, which you can rely on if you're a contributor or a node operator. Of course, we also can reharvest or collect the catalogs, so you can participate in the knowledge graph. You can experiment with virtual credits and wallets if you have similar settings or concepts into your potential national or regional setup. You're very welcome to try these out for us in terms of a proof of concept of POC during the build-up phase, and of course monitoring help desk, tier 1 level help desk. We try and offer across all these potential nodes. Hopefully this is the last time when I'm showing you this timeline, because we got to the end of it. It will be the service out this afternoon in production, and it's everything. It starts with an architecture drawing on a napkin. Of course, we are a commission, so we don't draw on napkins. We put them right on the wall. And then the first time on the top, you see when the contractors and the commission, both DGRTD and Connect, sit together at the same table, facilitated by CERN earlier this year, and we all look sufficiently depressed under the pressure that we have to deliver something. And of course, I myself have to report to the tripartite governance, where I have to convince everyone there that it's going well and it's going to be released soon. And if it's not scrutinizing enough, then you also have to meet the community and the gazillion of questions that you can get from people when this will be available and what's going on there. And then when you get to the point finally when the platform pops up on your screen behind closed doors in your office, then you feel a little bit of relief that this something will then be happen. And of course, we reached to the technical launch event in Brussels 2 weeks ago, where the contractors on stage demonstrated the platform, and you don't have to wait too long now to get your experience there as well. It will look like this once it's refreshed and the DNS converged globally and what have you. The user space, which is a new tab on the top right, and the login page, of course, will tell you all this. So there, if you're clicking, you will be able to get to our federated login page, where you find your home IDP or come by, you log in. You will get the credits automatically assigned, and you can start working as soon as it's there. And with that, I'd just like to recognize once again our contractors. Of course, they're all working for the Commission. One consortia looking after the core capabilities, led by Athena Research, another consortium members that you can see here. And of course, the node without the onboarded services that we procured would have been empty. So for that reason, we also have PSNC, the subcontractors, SafeSpring, Nordnet, and all the others that you can see on the screen, making this possible for us. So they will join us soon on the stage, and we're happy to answer questions. So thank you very much.
So it is now time to move over to the question and answer session, and I imagine after these talks that there will be a lot of questions both in the room as well as at home. I want to invite next to Peter on the stage Norbert and Spiros to come up. Is Norbert also in the room? Yes, there he is. Spiros Athanasiou is Senior Project Manager at Athena Research and Innovation Center in Greece. And Norbert Meyer is director of the Data Processing Technologies Division at the Poznań Supercomputer and Networking Center in Poland. And all three are excellent experts in everything that has happened up till now and will happen from now on with the EOSC EU node. So this is the chance to get questions answered. I'm also pretty sure that we won't be able to answer all of the questions. So therefore, I want to remind you that you can also interact directly with the contractors at the booth outside of this room, the EU booth. And there is also a dedicated session tomorrow, I think at 11 o'clock in the Grenanda room, where they will take a deep dive into the EOSC EU node. So people who can't get enough of this are advised to go there as well. Finally, also important to mention that on the new website there will also be a frequently asked questions section where you can go to see if your answer is part of that list. So, while we wait for questions to come in, maybe I can start this off with a first question to you, because it is pretty clear that the EOSC EU node is appearing in quite a crowded landscape already in Europe. So that will probably mean that there are potential users that already make use of services that are available on a regional level, on a national level, and maybe even on an institutional level. So what would be your message to you from the viewpoint of the EOSC EU node?
Well, good morning, everyone. I think I can start, and we're smiling today, so that's a good thing. The proposal, the suggestion to all the users in Europe is to use and pool whatever resources you have available. So you can get resources, compute, storage, services from the institutional accounts, whatever, regional, thematic, RIs in general, and also from the EOSC EU node. It's just another source of resources for you to use. You can find data, you can move them, you can use a service in another thematic RI. It is important to recognize that this is the whole concept. The free, without borders, movement of data to other services from other services. And the EOSC EU node is an entry point, let's say, as well as the other EU nodes in the future, an entry point to discover this data and services.
Thank you. Other viewpoints?
Okay, so first of all, I would like to say, in names also of my colleagues, partners, we are very proud that the Commission chose us, and we had the chance to participate in the work. And coming back to the question, I would say also yes, today also during the presentation it was said several times. Yeah, EOSC EU node will not be only a single node. So we are, and the federation, first of all, is open for another contributors, for another nodes on the national level, or nodes on specialized nodes. Yeah, what is available in EOSC node and can be used later on are a set of services which will simplify the use of and access to, in general, data, yeah? But data has to be once open, yeah? That's the idea. And second, the data will have to follow certain rules, yeah? If it will be the fact, we will be open and we'll get really a federation with pan-European, I would say, access and pan-European wide infrastructure and services.
Sarah, it's time to see whether we have questions from the online audience.
We do.
Okay, can you fire away?
The first one. Does the EOSC node harvest data from repositories or through OpenAir? Is there any relation with OpenAir Explorer, and are there instructions for direct harvesting?
So essentially, the EOSC EU node harvests essentially all the content, metadata available in OpenAir, but with additional inclusion quality criteria. So we make sure that there are no missing metadata elements for publications, data, etc. So essentially, yes, plus there are EC data sources, like Open Data Europe, as well as more.
Another one
I
from
go with
the
another
online
one.
audience?
Can you buy extra credits? And if so, can researchers claim cost on EU projects?
Practical question there, but an important one.
No. but I can expand a bit on this, right? So they have no monetary value. These credits follow the same example as in other RIs or services, where it is a means to manage demand and split the available resources in a fair manner to everyone that needs it. So they're free. They are provided from free from the EOSC node. If there are available resources to give, right, a user may ask, may I please have some more because I'm writing a paper, I need this and that. Yes, if it's available, it will be provided.
So it's a way to share the resources, yeah? Share the resources according to the activities of the communities, yeah, shortly saying also.
So after the questions online, are there questions in the room? I'm pretty sure there are. So much information was given. Okay, the lady over there, maybe? Is there a microphone? It's coming.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to look into the deep dive tomorrow on the EU node. I had a very quick question, actually, about the capacity of the system and what load it would take. Do we know this yet? Because it's only just entered a production environment. Have we examples?
So, if I may, we have at this moment two different groups of services, so-called low-level services. In the background of these services are the infrastructure. So as usual, yeah, the size and capacity of the infrastructure are limited, yeah. But doesn't mean it will not increase, that's once. But we count also on, let's say, the federation, yeah, and federation which will include other type of resources, yeah. So altogether, it's an idea, yeah, of the EOSC, but also on the federation to use and to share the resources, yeah, to share the resources, and on top of the resources, all the services, yeah, which are available at EOSC node, which can be used by anybody. But also services which will come from the outside, yeah, pan-European set of services, specialized services, but also services from the national node.
I think I saw a question over there. Is that correct? Can we take that one next?
Thank you very much for this presentation. I think in this kind of environment, training will be a very powerful tool in order to see the feedback from the user. How do you think scaling up this training for users?
Yeah, one of the services you will see is a training catalog, where training resources that users can follow themselves or contribute also for others are available there to follow, to educate themselves, and get a certification, right? So this is part of the overall user experience. The services go hand in hand with training courses, training material.
Hello, here. When I'm coming on Thursday back to my institute, what should I tell to my colleagues? What is EU node? Where they should start, what it is good for them, for their everyday life. What would you pick in 1 or 2 sentences they will understand?
Maybe you can also introduce yourself when you ask the question.
Marek Cebyca, EOSC Institute, Prague.
Yeah. So, with my background, this is what I tell my team. Look, there's a search engine over there, and you can find and discover research output, publications, data, software, services, training material for more than 120 million resources right now, and hopefully many, many more in the future. Also, you can have free access to some application services and compute and storage services for your own personal use, which you can combine them with whatever other resources you may have from your own institution. So it's there if you need to discover things across disciplines. It's there to discover things that you may not be aware of, and is a way to have access to computer and storage resources in case you need it.
If I may add also from my experience on the national level, but I'm also active in the HPC area, but also on the in some projects, S3 projects. So when we evaluated the S3 project, there was still, or for several years, there was a question about so-called e-needs. E-needs means how the projects and how the data integrated with the European ecosystem. Now, from the user point of view, we can say that for specialized infrastructure, research infrastructures, and for specialized applications, we will have the services, we will have tools where you can easy, let's say, when you can, maybe not easy, but when you can, to start cross search and engines, yeah, within the entire metadata space. So from the user point of view, this is very important, yeah. Second, you can use, as it was said, also the notebooks, yeah. There is a service which allows you also to integrate applications. But from my point of view, important is that the data are visible, yeah, visible on a horizontal level, yeah. So it's another way of how you can access the data, how you can move the data to the infrastructure, for example, HPC, but also how you can address the data, yeah, and have really engines, search engines and within the federation, so that you really available in the federation with your data.
Okay, before we go back to Slido, I see one burning question. The gentleman in the green shirt who has his hand up already for minutes, changing hand because it's become too heavy. So that behavior needs to be rewarded. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks. This is Daniel Tomás López from MBLBI, the Elixir Hub. It was in relation to the question about training, because I understood from the answer that the users can go into the service catalog and see what resources are there and get trained. I would expect also that training is needed to upskill the people into using the EU node. So, for example, this happened with the old EOS portal, where training was being done to help the users to start the EU node. Is there going to be anything done in relation to that, or is it going to be left more to the users to explore individually and get into using the node? Thank you.
Yeah, so there are two aspects in this. The first is, yes, there is going to be training material available for users. The second part of this is that, as every other successful service, it needs to be intuitive. The information provided to the users in it, the guidance, the hints, right? It needs to enable to self-serve themselves. And when you have the chance to explore it, you will see that the whole user interface, the queues, everything guides you towards using it. So it has a much lower entry barrier with much less jargon and much closer to what a researcher usually expects to find.
So if I may comment on this last point of the lowering the barrier, indeed this is part of the new user or researcher experiment or experience with the platform. Typically how it goes, you have to apply to committees waiting for calls to get access to certain infrastructure, even commoditized infrastructure work many cases, and that way there's a long waiting period while your time During that period, you can train yourself, you can prepare, you can do all kinds of things, but you still don't have access to the actual infrastructure. And then suddenly you throw in a vast amount of resources on you. So that's why nobody really, from the operators or the owner's point of view, wants to allow you in, right, and mess up too much over there. This is a different experience now, because from day one, as long as you successfully authenticate, you will see what's going on there. You can start using it, right, step by step. Credits are limited. Obviously, our resources are limited, which I would take it as a good thing, right? Because then we can convince other resource providers to bring in their infrastructure resources, bring their applications, bring their data, and sort of enrich the offering of the node. But from the end user perspective, this is the experience where you step by step, little by little, right from the first day, you will have access to something that you can experiment yourself.
Thank you. So I see one question in the room, but let's first go back to the Slido.
Yeah, the next stop question is, how are services for researchers selected into the EOSC node?
The answer is no. There will be a policy, right, about onboarding into the EOSC node, and this is to become available as well as the technical instruments in the very near future. So there's no sort of selection, let's say.
Maybe I can continue that one up with a question from the perspective of the data. Is there any kind of prioritization in terms of the data sets being integrated? And can you say something about the ratio between data sets coming in, services being onboarded, so data sets / repositories? Is there something to say about how you see that evolving?
Yeah. So I guess we can talk about data repositories, data sources, separately from services themselves. For data and data repositories, there is no prioritization. We harvest and we index and we provide everything, right? It's also a matter of policy, however, in the future, if it makes sense, for example, to highlight a few more, create some thematic categories, or perhaps replicate, if asked by specific RIs providers, high-value data sets, right, for specific purposes. So because as the EOSC node, we can contribute storage, compute to help RIs in this, right? About the services, that's another thing. The ratio now, data to services, we can of course expect the number of data to be much, much greater than the services, which makes sense. It's what we want. It's what we anticipate, right? All kinds of data. The services will be less. Now we're starting with native integrated EU node services, and hopefully more will be onboarded in the future.
If we have a look, or if we can have a look to the future, there was by EOSC Association there was a call, a questionnaire sent to EOSC members, yeah, the EOSC Association members. So yesterday I saw there was an interest in applications of more than 50 institutions which would like to provide the national EOSC nodes, yeah, and that's the national EOSC nodes, are also specialized nodes. So all these nodes which will access the federation, yeah, and will be integrated with the EOSC node, will provide its own services, yeah. Maybe or hopefully they will use the services which are at the EOSC node. That's an opportunity, but they will provide also its own services, yeah. So there will be a large list of services on top of the data which are provided or available on the national level, for example, yeah. So it's hopefully it will be fast and soon a large community of pan-European community with the data repositories.
So maybe a question from the Slido now to take, because we have a couple of minutes yet to go.
Yeah. Are all the nodes going to have the same list of tools? For example, Jupyter notebooks. If not, are users forced to use them on the EU node? If yes, are they shared?
No. Let's try and break this down. Every node has an autonomy about the services it has. thing number one. Two, the software of the EOSC node is open source. It also serves as a blueprint. So other nodes may or may not adopt the services. The starting services you find now, such as Jupyter Notebooks, are things that pretty much every scientist now uses. So de facto, let's say, what they want. So we address this demand. So yeah.
So we have low-level services. So if a party institution would like to use the infrastructure, there are services for virtual machines, OKDs, yeah, so containers, and also fast data transfers. But on top of these services are the notebooks, collaboration services, and file senders, yeah. But the higher level services are not necessarily to be used here.
So I see questions still in the room. Looking at the time, I think we can take 2 of them. So you, sir, go ahead. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, Giorgio Rossi. How do you go about assessing data quality? If I turn the thing around, is the user on its own risk to end up to fake data within the EOSC, or there is some service that will prevent the user finding out unreliable, low quality, or malicious data?
I can answer this question only from the EOSC node perspective. So we use metadata that are already published. And this is where, literally, we need the RIs, the scientists, those that curate highly valued metadata for expensive data sets to provide them so that they are available from the EOSC node.
And now I see a lot of questions popping up, so let's see how many we can take until we are at the end. So first, the gentleman over there. And then I saw 2 hands there, right? Sally, behind Sally, okay.
Thank you. I really, Fossopoulos, Serth, also in the EVERS project. I'm really excited about the EU node, and I'm really looking forward to actually play around with the services. I have 2 questions. One is also related to the... One question, fair. I feel that a lot of the things that I've heard is about data services, and the software is about infrastructure software, and less than the actual software that the individual researchers are going to be using. So is there a plan to deploy software depending on the user needs in the EOSC node?
First of all, you will be able to find in the catalog software to download and use. Second, and this is something we haven't really covered, we have introduced the Tools Hub. So this is infrastructure as code, the Tosca templates, right? So essentially, these are recipes that some of us, we have prepared, and we expect many, many more to be provided by the end users. So let's say I have developed the scientific software, and I want to share how this is deployed over a large-scale cloud infrastructure from another user, another laboratory, another RI. It's one click, press play, and it gets deployed over the cloud EU service of the EOSC node. So this is where we expect lots of activity in terms of actually ready-to-use software by scientists.
Okay, looking at the time, I do think that we need to stop anyway. Sorry for the 2 people who wanted to raise questions, but I would like to remind you that there are other opportunities, so go to the booth, go to the section tomorrow at 11 o'clock, and go to the website that will be available for the question and answers there. So a big hand for the panel here.
Enjoy the note, yeah.
So now it is time to broaden the scope a little bit further and take a dive into the EOSC Federation, the broader context of this EU node. And for that, I would like to introduce Bob Jones and ask him to come to the stage. Bob is the deputy head of the IT department at CERN and also a member of the board of the EOSC Association, and he will bring us up to speed with the current status of the EOSC Federation. Again, no time for questions after Bob's talk, but he will be part of the panel, so that is your opportunity.
Right. Thank you very much, Ingrid. So we've heard already this morning, great occasion, the launch of the EU node. But as already mentioned in some of the introductions, that's one node amongst many in a federation. So what I'll try and show you is the steps that have been taken to try and establish that federation and where we're going next with that. So it was already mentioned that there was a questionnaire sent out this summer, and many thanks to many of you who did respond to that questionnaire. The whole point of it was to try and understand and gauge what is the level of interest from the different stakeholders across Europe to participate, to contribute to this federation. And here are some of the numbers. So after all the data being cleaned up, we had 121 submissions. So first of all, we were quite flabbergasted by the level of response, and it shows the great interest across Europe to be part of EOSC and contribute to the federation. And that included responses from 25 countries and many international organizations. There were more than a dozen international organizations. By international organizations, we include things like ERICS, members of the Euro Forum, the European Commission itself, because it also submitted a part for the EU node, and those sort of organizations. So a very good balance widely across Europe. And out of those, 52 were suggesting that they would be willing to create a node. So not all of them, but you see a very large number. And these were broken down into a number of different types of nodes. Now, this classification was not a question itself on the questionnaire. It's something that the tripartite has tried to interpret ourselves. So we broke it down into a number of classifications. National nodes have been mentioned this morning. There were thematic nodes as well, when we understood that it was particular to a specific discipline. Institutional nodes, when there's a particular organization that perhaps has very well-known, high-quality data sets and services that they would like to make available to a larger, broader user base. And then also regional nodes. By regional, we meant they could be within a part of a country, so you could have different regions within a country. We got some responses there. We also got responses where several countries were coming together and wanted to work on a sort of multicultural, multi-country regional node. And then others. By others, we meant sort of nodes such as the EU node, but also we listed under that those coming from pan-European e-infrastructures as well. Okay. And so those are the 5 different node types that you can see there as well. So there's a good cross-section of those. The majority was coming from thematic, closely followed by national nodes as well. So there's a good distribution. And what the other parts we also looked at is when would those nodes be ready to engage and start deployment activities. And out of all of those, 42 of those 52 said that they are ready to deploy before July 2025. And this is important because we're in now what's called the build-up phase. So we have to somehow sequence the introduction of those nodes into the federation. Just as we saw, you've heard with credits being available in order to manage the demand, we have to think of managing the demand for enrolling and onboarding resources and nodes into the federation. So we have to do it progressively. We can't do it all at once. It would overload the people who are there who have to try and do the integration activities. That's why we want to try and do it in that manner. So if we now look at, also on that questionnaire, what was seen as the added value of becoming part and contributing to the federation. So this is not our ideas, but from the respondents themselves. And if we look at this, these are the key points that came out. Increased visibility and reach. It's very important for the contributors to the EOSC Federation be able to justify, for example, to their funding agencies, what are they actually achieving, what are they doing, how is their research output being used. So this reuse aspect, so being part of the federation will increase that visibility and the reach that can be had there. Collaboration and interoperability, we've heard already questions about how do we make these things interoperable. So being part of the federation where we expect to have some policies and adopt existing standards and put them together to increase this interoperability between the nodes and between the resources, the services and the data sets there, that will help them and increase the added value there as well. And also collaboration, working together on those different aspects as well, rather than do it on your own. And also, many of us said that their funding agencies are asking them now to actually implement and achieve open science and fair principles. And the EOSC Federation is seen as a very good vehicle, a concrete mechanism by which they are able to do that. Also being able to access broader resources and expertise. You've seen this morning the exciting occasion with the EU node of having access to additional resources which were not available to you yesterday. So these are additional things that are there now and can become available to you there. But also the question of expertise as well. The people who put these together, they're willing to share their ideas and help you understand how you can onboard your material as well. And then if we are collectively working together inside this federation, it's more likely that there will be greater influence on policy and standardization, that will be easier to get those used in the different research communities. And of course, the question of sustainability and economic benefits, having these things more visible, these other elements, will help it make it easier for those service providers and resource providers to justify why they are doing this work and hence help them to achieve more sustainable funding, hopefully, and also the question of economies of scale. If we do the things collaboratively and share them, it means you don't have to do all the work yourself as well. Okay, so those are the sort of things that came out of the questionnaire. So what we see is a good enthusiasm, a good diversity of people and organizations willing to contribute. Now, how are we going to put it together? So these are some of the discussions that are going on as part of the EOSC Federation of what are the goals of trying to put together this build-up phase. Michael Arentoff has alluded to them already this morning. But if you look at these are in discussion at the moment with the tripartite. They fall into three different parts. So the technical goals, there's the organizational goals, and the scientific goals of the Federation. So testing the interoperability across the different services, across the federating services, and across the different nodes. How do nodes work together? This is one of the important parts there as well. And also the orchestration of being able to make workflows go across multiple nodes, multiple services, and so on. That is also seen as a good technical objective of this work. From the sort of organizational point of view, we have to understand when we're implementing these policies, what's required from the different contributors. We have to put together this set of basic policies that's been referred to already. We only have rough drafts so far. We have to put them together, test them, and use them as part of these deployments. But also we have to understand what is the costs involved and the effort and resources required to actually participate. We only have rough guesses now. Our colleagues, the contractors that have put together the EU node, they now have a sense of how much it's taken them to put together that node, okay? What about the other nodes? Yeah? How much effort and resources is it going to take for them? And the more we can get a better estimate of this, the easier it is for the other organizations to determine when is the right moment for them to actually participate in the federation and what skills and resources do they need in order to do that. The other two parts is very much about, well, what's in it for the science as well. So, as already been mentioned this morning, for seeing some scientific use cases that go across multi-nodes, end-to-end scientific use cases that involve multiple nodes and multiple resources are a good way of demonstrating the added value from a scientific point of view. We've talked a lot about the low-level infrastructure, but we have to think of the higher parts as well. And also engagement of the end users as part of that. Already we see today end users being announced as being able to access the services on the EU node. It will be the same situation with the other nodes as well. There'll be an occasion when a node becomes open to other federation users as well, and we need to get their feedback and understand from them the added value of those nodes. So those are the basic goals during this build-up phase, okay? The other part we want to look at is, as I've said, we've got this question of sequencing the introduction of new nodes into the federation. So how are we going to do that? And these are a set of sequencing criteria, analysis of the responses that are in the questionnaires, which we have drafted, but they haven't been finalized yet. They've been drafted as to what will be the ways we choose the order in which we start to onboard those resources and enroll those into the federation. First of all, I won't go all the way through, but you can see the different aspects here. So there's questions of the resources available and the different timing and the quality of it, okay? And just to finish, I'll just highlight that one of the points that we're highlighting is that we recognize we're doing this. It won't be exclusive, it will be inclusive, and to do that, there's an engagement plan put in place to respond with, first of all, the respondents to the questionnaire, but also those that are interested but probably didn't respond immediately, and then, of course, the wider community as well. Remember, as you said, the questionnaire went out not only to EOSC association members, but broader. It was open to everybody, so quite a few respondents came from beyond the EOS Federation. And I just finished with the timeline. So first of all, the questionnaire is finished. That's been done. We're now here consolidating the feedback and putting together the handbook, which will explain how the Federation works. Don't forget there's a session this afternoon, so all you want to know about the handbook will be explained later this afternoon. Okay. The next steps are to sort of come back to the tripartite governance to decide about the criteria which will be used for analyzing and the sequencing and the basis of those, and that will be discussed at the tripartite in November. And then the actual onboarding process will be part of a dialogue that goes on with a subset of those respondents, and we expect that to take pretty much the first quarter of 2025, and we expect then to have the responses and be able to give you first feedback on this first wave of the Federation towards the second half of the year. And with a little overrun, I've now finished.
Thank you very much. And sorry, you can stay here, I think. And sorry to almost push you from the microphone, but we still have one item to go in this session, and I think that the coffee is already almost ready. So we have now a panel session to shed a little bit more light again on the EOSC Federation. And I would like to call to the stage Peter again, whom you already met, but also Immaculada Figuera and Dejan Dvořák. Immaculada is Vice Director General of the International Consortia, Organizations and Research Infrastructures at the Spanish Ministry of Science, Innovation and Universities, and she is also a member of the EOSC Steering Board. And Dejan is the Deputy Head of Unit of Open Science and Research Infrastructures at DG RTD of the European Commission. So I think with this excellent panel, we have all parties involved on the stage, the Commission, the EOSC Association, and the Steering Board representing the Member States. So let me kick this panel off with a first question to you. Bob just gave us a very nice overview of the things that are happening now and are planned to happen with respect to the Federation of Nodes. And I have said before that this federation, of course, is not appearing in an empty landscape. And from my own experience as a national service provider in the Netherlands, a data repository, I also know that there is some skepticism around about the EOSC and its potential benefits. And in this context, I think it would be very nice from all of you to hear what you expect to be the tangible problems that the EOSC is going to serve, especially for the end users. And I think, Bob, you already gave some clues to that in the presentation that you gave from the side of the EOSC Association. So it might be good to also hear from the others their perspectives on this question. So who would like to start? Yeah, it works.
Yes. So first of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to be here and in this special opportunity of celebration of the EOSC U-Note. That I can tell you that it was a challenging goal that we all share, and we see that now is here, and it's going to be a first step in the building of this federation. In relation with your question, I think that EOS brings a lot of things for users. I think it's going to solve all the problems in data management. It's going to solve all the possibilities of access to new data, not only coming from the thematic areas, but also from other areas in order to build new research, I think that is also very important because it's going to offer the users capabilities in training and also opportunities to access to services and applications that in another way it could be impossible for them to reach. So I am convinced that the users know that, and I think that we are responsible of making this aware to them in order they support it. They are there, but this is done by them, and I think that it is clear that EOS is going to offer very important things for users.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me here also from my side, and also very nice to see this big community coming together. Some of the things were already obviously mentioned, and of course, I mean, one of the main things that we also saw through the note presentation or the highlights of it is this access question, right? Just all of a sudden we have a kind of at the moment first point, but later down the road, many points that would probably have aligned access to the federation, and through that basically better and easier discovery of data, of services, of resources that are available, potentially augment the experience of your own native environment where you go to, because just all of a sudden your environment becomes part of the larger ecosystem, and through that you have many more options and services available. Also, by establishing maybe some of the policies and align a little bit what we do and how we deliver things, this definitely will contribute to reliability, to trust, to certain level of quality of service that is available, because I think that we will probably need to look into what is the minimum quality that we want. Ideally, also then from the service providers, we've heard that maybe get their visibility up there, being more visible also beyond their default users. And for the nodes also having connected and probably sharing maybe some of the core capacities that will somehow instill the stability. So all this will kind of bring a lot of added value to the users.
Thank you. Bob or Peter, do you want to add a few words?
Yes.
It's on.
So from the EU node perspective, I believe we have to build this federation from bottom up based on mutual value for those who are joining it. So that's more like a reverse question to you, right? For instance, do you have a data set which is well visited by researchers who are not part of your home constituency? They are coming from different disciplines. They are coming from different countries. Do you have difficulties serving those researchers in your current infrastructure or in your current settings? What would be then the solution that the EOSC node brings you? You can put that data to a neutral place, being the EOSC node, and you can invite your visiting researchers there to do some joint research in groups. Would that be a help for you? Would that help? Similarly with applications, if you have a scientific applications that you want to productize and make it ready for users to use, do you have the capacity and the capabilities to do that? Would you mind hosting it on the EOSC node? Would then the EOSC node help you with that, right? We have to identify your problems, and we have to identify what answer the EOSQ node can give you to those problems, and we have to start this build-up phase from the bottom to try and jointly address those difficulties that the research infrastructures or other potential node candidates are having, and try to bring in eventually value to the end users. And of course, it should be reciprocal in a way that, you know, from an EOSQ node perspective, we also should see the value in those data sets, in those applications, in those user communities that you are bringing in and enriching the federation with.
So I understand that there are also questions online again. So Sarah, can you give us one that is prioritized by the audience?
The first question is, can a service belong to multiple nodes, for example, national and thematic?
Can a service belong to multiple nodes? Yeah, so as was mentioned earlier, the nodes are autonomous, and the choice of the services and the data sets and repositories they make available is their choice. One can imagine that there would be the same repositories accessible from different nodes, okay? So that's certainly possible. We also talked about things like Jupyter notebooks being very popular. One can imagine that similar notebook services would exist on multiple nodes as well.
Yeah, another one?
Yeah, how will researchers be supported to find the right service/node for a specific use case?
I think that at the end of the day, this will be basically reflected through some sort of knowledge graphs and, you know, mechanisms to suggest or also for discovery to the users. Basically, as we have more nodes and all this information is properly indexed and my native node maybe is aware of what I'm looking for, it can ask around in the federation, do you have something on that manner, and propose, even maybe if I click, we are all used to this today, right? We use it every day. You go to a marketplace, you open up a product that you're looking, and underneath there are recommendations that are related to this product. Today, it may be possible within one node. Tomorrow, it should be possible coming from any node part of the federation, and that will facilitate really to go cross-disciplinary and way beyond what usually where you find your information.
Okay, one more Slido question, and then I go to the room.
Yeah. How will you prevent too many nodes popping up that overlap? And there is also a remark that the definition of what a node is or would be is not super clear.
Yeah, so as we said, this is going to happen in waves, right? Building up the federation. So it will be iterations. When we talk about the central things like the policies, the interoperability framework, and so on, these will happen in iterations. So they will become progressively better defined and more detailed. So as part of that, one can imagine there will be some overlaps. We've mentioned already that there may be the same services available on multiple nodes. That may become rationalized later, but there may be also justifications why there are duplications. They may be restrictions on who can use a particular service. That's not up to the federation to choose. We said that nodes are autonomous. They pick themselves who they serve. We would like to see a maximum of services and resources being available. So that's why in one of the slides I only quickly talked about was the idea that we would pretend to favor initially in the first wave those nodes which are proposing to make their resources, the services and the data repositories openly available to any EOSC Federation user without additional restrictions and without requesting additional funding or things like that, or payment. Yeah.
Questions from the room? There must be many. Volker, you go first.
Yes, my question is, what do you expect to happen in parallel in the countries to support this building of the federation? What is your top priority wish list, what we should do in the countries? And this is also for Inma, of course, to, to give your point of view there.
Well, I think that what is important in the countries is first to create this awareness in the national authorities of what is EOS and what is EOS offer to national open science strategies. I think this is clear. It is important the engagement of EOSC and the needs of EOSC in the culture of the organization at national level, institutionally, but also administratively at the level of administration and funding agencies. I think that we need to take or to have ownership of EOSC at national level, that it is important. And in this, with this intention, it is key to define a governance in which the member states feel that they are part of, that they can work inside our countries in a flexible manner. I have already said this several times, because our countries are very different and we are designing different strategies for our engagement in EOSC in order to have the opportunity to join EOSC and to find the ways to foster the participation of our users, our research infrastructures, our research performance organization, our data infrastructures to work together in order to engage to EOSC. But I am convinced that if with the exercise that we are doing through the EU note and now in this year with the process of increase the federation with the notes, that we should see this like an intent to build something bigger, and thinking that we have to thank those nodes that has decided to go a step further and to propose themselves to build in this first stage the federation. Learn by doing, and to see and understand the best way that the member states and our institutions can be enrolled to EOSC. So I think it's important, the governance, the definition of funding models for making EOS sustainable, because if we trust or we believe that EOS could be the backbone for the European research area, we need to find a way to make it sustainable on time. And we will try to work on that.
If I may add to this on the role of member states, from a technical point of view, it seems very easy to imagine from reaching down from a European level all the way to the end institutions and the researchers. But of course, if you take into account some certain legal and financial aspects as well, next to technology, you will realize that that's not a scalable model, and EOSC will never be able to do that without the active role of the member states, right? Obviously, there are financial boundaries. Your national research funding will not leave your borders. That has relation to virtual credits maybe, and how these different wallets can live in an environment, how many different wallet a user can have, and how they spend those things. There's also privacy protection on your data, right? You have to hold the hands of your institutions and have written agreements in place for controllership and things like that. As long as we have a controller-to-controller relationship with the EOSC node operators, that's fine. But as long as you start pushing data, for instance, to the EOSC node, where the node becomes a data processor, that needs under GDPR certain processing agreements. So and that's just some of the legal aspects that came to my mind quickly, which are pointing beyond the technology and what we can achieve with technology, and without the active role of the member states and in the national settings, but also the thematic nodes who've been already organizing certain relevant data spaces, the health data space or other disciplines together, are essentially crucial to make this EOSC federated system work.
Thank you for that, and I think when you talk about financial and legal challenges that we face, that they will probably be even a harder nut to crack than the technology. So many questions come from that, but we don't have time to dive into all of that. Are there any burning questions still in the room? I see a hand over there in the back.
Hello, Roxanne Wins from KU Leuven. The wallet credit system was just mentioned. I was just wondering whether the nodes, the other nodes, will also be expected to work with the same system for cost-intensive resources.
So initially, as has been explained, the credit system is focused on demand management for the services that are in the EU node. There's been quite a lot of work through the series of governance for EOSC, through the financial sustainability working group and so on, and continuations of that, looking at what could be the financial models around EOSC. Immaculada just highlighted that this is one of the important points that the governance will have to look at. I think at the moment, this is not something that is being introduced and imposed on the different nodes. It's strictly for the EU node at the moment. But on the experiences that happens with that, it could be a model to understand whether or not it could be helpful in terms of the federation aspects at a later stage. But it's too early to say. There are a number of different models that could be employed, but it's anything that has real data that we can see if its actual usage and works, that's worth considering. Yeah.
Other questions in the room? Yes, over there, in the back.
Hello, Ivo Janmaat from SURF. I would like to respond to the former question. In the Netherlands, we use a credit system. We started using that for a couple of years ago. And it enables the researcher to choose their resources carefully. And what we experienced was that by giving them this opportunity, we could have 4 times more researchers on the same system, because they are aware of the cost, and they will reduce the load on the system, basically. So that helped us a lot. And also the credits are used from different budgets. So you can have national budgets that give credits, or international budgets, or institutional budgets. But they can all use the credit system. So it proved to us very flexible. So I'm quite happy that EOSC is adopting the same strategy.
I think it's too early to say EOSC is adopting that strategy. Okay, as I said, it's one of the models that can be considered. Right? So, but it's good to hear that people have made successful use of such models. Yeah.
So one final question from Slido.
Yeah, the question is, what is the relationship between thematic nodes and thematic data spaces?
Ooh.
Well, to close the panel,
that's the advanced level.
A little bit more difficult question.
Yeah.
I guess it's not an obvious question, but it's, answer to that. But maybe it is as well. We know that research is quite cross-cutting, right? And it does not touch. It's not research of research, but it's of a specific disciplines in different thematic areas. So. We know that there will be other data spaces, European data spaces, but also maybe other types of specific thematic subject, and probably that will be based on data emerging behind, which could be probably available through research data space, also being EOSC, but also through other places, and of course. Even if it is not directly exposed through EOSC, by interconnecting between the data spaces, the data from one side to the other will start to be available. And I think that that's how I would interpret it. So, of course, there are repositories that might serve particular data space, but then this data, once the data space is connected with EOSC, would also become visible to EOSC users.
I've been trying to put my head around the common European data spaces for a while. And what I realized is that it's almost impossible to understand data spaces if you position yourself outside of all the data space and looking at it from above and trying to make sense how these data spaces are being organized. It's an impossible problem to solve. I think the way how you should approach it is you put yourself inside a data space and you have to understand how other data spaces relate to that. And we might have good answers if you are sitting in EOSC, how do we see other potential data spaces, the health data space, and working together with them, the Green Deal data space. Listen back to the discussions that we had at the panel discussions that we had at the technical launch event. We addressed some of these things there. That's the way to approach it. And also how, if you're sitting in another data space, how EOSC looks like from sitting that data space. Sort of understanding everything from above, it's almost impossible in my opinion.
So we run to the end of the session, and I want to take you back to where we started in this session, where I quoted from a paper from, what was it, 2021, and that paper was called, Where Do We Go From Here? How do we make the EOSC work? So one final question to the panel. Name us one action that you really think should be prioritized next year that is necessary to make the EOSC Federation work. And looking at the time, just one sentence, 2 sentences, but that is it. From all of you. Who wants to start?
From my side, what I have already said, I think the most important for the next period is to develop all together in this multi-level stakeholder approach that we have and implement a sustainable funding and governance model. This is key for going ahead with the EOSC.
Well, obviously, to really start hands-on enrolling other nodes into the federation. There's no federation when we are talking only if there is one node is here, but more needs to come in order that we can discuss federation. So really hands-on enrolling at the organizational and technical level.
Thank you.
Make researchers happy.
We have to get organized to make those researchers happy. So there's 2 elements for me. Is one, we have to set up the node forum because we have to share the information, what lessons we're going to learn from the deployment. It has to be shared, it has to be democratized. And also we have to identify which organization is going to take the responsibility for the operation of the federation. And as was said yesterday, we think the association is the best position to do that.
So with that, I would like to thank all the speakers, the panelists, the contractors, and everybody in the room who interacted with us for this wonderful session. So a big hand for the speakers. And since this was a celebration, I would now expect music and balloons dropping from the sky to celebrate the EU EOSC being born. But I think we have to do with a cup of coffee and cake.